My wife said, "Jack, sit down. We need to talk about your future." I tried to keep my composure, almost laughing, but I held it back. She had no idea that I'd already seen the divorce papers she had hidden in her purse, nor that my lawyer had prepared a counteroffer that would leave her speechless. You know that moment when you're looking for something innocent and your whole world just shifts? That happened to me last Tuesday, searching for my phone charger that had somehow ended up tangled in my wife's purse. She was upstairs getting ready for her book club meeting, and I needed to charge my phone before heading to work. My hand brushed against a manila folder that definitely didn't belong there, nestled next to her usual collection of receipts, lipstick, and whatever else women carry with them. The folder felt substantial, important, the kind of thing you don't casually stuff into a purse unless you're trying to hide it. I pulled it out and saw my name typed at the top of the first page. Divorce papers. Fully prepared, professionally drafted divorce papers with the line for my signature highlighted in yellow, just waiting for me to sign my life away. The documentation was exhaustive. She had been planning this for months, maybe longer. There were asset valuations, property appraisals, even a proposed custody schedule for our finances that heavily favored her. She had listed the value of our house at about $50,000 below market price, conveniently forgetting the renovations we'd completed last year. My retirement account was somehow valued at a significantly lower amount than I knew it was worth. I heard the click of her heels on the floorboards upstairs, moving closer to the staircase. Quickly, I photographed every page with my phone and then placed the folder back exactly where I found it. My charger was still tangled in the side pocket, giving me the perfect alibi for why I'd been digging through her purse. She appeared at the top of the stairs in that navy blue dress she wore when she wanted to look authoritative, the one she bought specifically for PTA meetings and important gatherings. "Find your charger?" she asked, her voice carrying that slightly condescending tone she'd been using more often lately. "Yep, just found it." I held up the cord, keeping my expression neutral. "Have fun at book club." She smiled that rehearsed smile she'd perfected over 15 years of marriage. "Tonight we're discussing relationship dynamics. It should be enlightening." The irony hit me, but I just nodded. "I'm sure it will be." After she left, I sat in our kitchen staring at those photos on my phone. Every page told a story of calculated planning and careful manipulation. She had consulted lawyers, gathered financial documents, even prepared talking points for our eventual conversation. This wasn't an impulsive decision. It was a strategic operation. The really interesting part was the timeline based on the dates of various documents. She had started this process right around the time she'd begun complaining about my work schedule. All those talks about us growing distant, about needing space, about how marriage required constant evaluation. She'd been setting the stage while I thought we were just going through a rough patch. I called my friend who had gone through his own divorce 2 years ago. He gave me the name of his lawyer, a woman who apparently didn't believe in playing games when it came to protecting her clients' interests. The next morning, I took a long lunch and met with her. Her office was downtown, nothing fancy, but she had a direct way of speaking that told me she wouldn't waste my time or money. I showed her the pictures of the divorce papers. "Your wife's lawyer did a decent job," she said, scanning the images on my phone. "But there are some interesting assumptions in here that play to our advantage." She pointed out several areas where my wife had undervalued assets or made claims that could be easily disputed. The house valuation is ridiculously low. The figures for your retirement account are based on outdated statements. Even more telling, she lists several personal items as marital property that you actually purchased before we were married. "She's assuming you'll just sign this without consulting anyone," the lawyer explained. "Most people do. They see official papers and think they have to accept what's presented." We spent an hour going through everything. By the end of our meeting, I had a clear picture of what my wife had planned and what my real options were. More importantly, I had a strategy. The lawyer would prepare a comprehensive response that protected my interests and highlighted the inaccuracies in my wife's petition. But she suggested I wait for my wife to make the first move. "Let her play her cards," she advised. "Let her think she's in control. When someone believes they hold all the power, they often reveal more than they intended." That evening, my wife came home from work acting completely normal. She asked about my day, mentioned she needed to stay late tomorrow for a project deadline, even suggested we order takeout from that Thai place we both liked. I watched her performance with new eyes. Every gesture, every casual comment, every affectionate touch felt calculated now. She was an actress playing the part of a devoted wife while secretly plotting my exit from her life. "How was book club last night?" I asked during dinner. "Oh, you know how it is. A lot of talk about communication in relationships, about whether couples truly understand each other." She took a sip of wine. Some of the women shared stories about their husbands. It's amazing how oblivious men can be to what's happening right in front of them. I almost choked on my pad thai. "Really? What kind of stories?" "Just situations where the wives had to make tough decisions for the good of everyone involved. Sometimes you have to take the reins when someone else won't." She was practically giving me a preview of coming attractions. I just nodded thoughtfully and said, "Sounds like those women had it all figured out." They do. It's refreshing to be around people who understand that you sometimes have to be strategic with major life decisions. That night, as she slept beside me, I realized I was looking at a stranger. The woman I'd married 15 years ago wouldn't have hidden divorce papers in her purse. She wouldn't have spent months secretly planning to dissolve our marriage while pretending everything was fine. But this woman, apparently, would. The next few days followed the same pattern. She maintained her normal routine while I observed everything with a new perspective. Her late nights at work became opportunities for lawyer meetings. Her outings with her friends were likely strategy sessions with divorced friends. Even her sudden growing interest in our finances made sense now. She was preparing for war, but she had made one crucial mistake. She had underestimated her opponent. The following week, my wife's behavior became even more telling. She started working later, claimed her workload had increased significantly, and began having hushed phone conversations that ended abruptly whenever I walked into the room. Meanwhile, I was conducting my own investigation. My lawyer had given me a list of documents to gather: bank statements, credit card records, property deeds, insurance policies, everything we would need to build an accurate picture of our financial situation. The process revealed some interesting discoveries. For the past 6 months, my wife had been making cash withdrawals from our joint account. Small amounts, never more than $350 at a time, but frequent enough to add up to over $5,000. Money that had simply vanished without explanation. She had also opened a credit card in her name that I knew nothing about. The statements, which I found buried in her desk drawer, showed regular charges at expensive restaurants, clothing stores, and what appeared to be legal consultation fees. But the most revealing discovery was her browsing history on our shared computer. She had been researching divorce lawyers for months, reading articles about asset protection, and visiting forums where women discuss strategies for maximizing their settlement agreements. One bookmark in particular caught my eye, a forum post titled, "How to Secure Your Financial Future When Your Husband Controls the Money." The advice was essentially a playbook for what she had been doing. Make copies of everything, establish independent credit, document any behavior that could be used against him later. On Thursday night, she announced another late night at the office. "Big presentation tomorrow," she explained, kissing my forehead in that condescending way she had recently adopted. "Don't wait up for me." I called my lawyer as soon as her car pulled out of the driveway. "Perfect timing," she said. "I finished reviewing everything you provided. Your wife's lawyer made several assumptions that played heavily in your favor." She explained that the divorce papers I had found were essentially a first draft designed to see if I would agree to her terms without negotiation. The asset valuations were deliberately conservative. The proposed split heavily favored my wife, and several claims about our property were simply incorrect. More importantly, she continued, some of these cash withdrawals and undisclosed credit accounts could be considered dissipation of marital assets. If she's been hiding money or spending jointly owned funds without your knowledge, that strengthens your position considerably. We scheduled a meeting for the following week to finalize my response, but she warned me to maintain my current behavior. "Don't change anything yet. Let her think her plan is working. The longer she operates under false assumptions, the stronger our position will be when we reveal what we really know." Friday morning brought an interesting development. My wife received a phone call that she took in our bedroom with the door closed. I could hear her voice through the wall, though not the specific words. The tone was tense, frustrated. When she emerged 20 minutes later, she seemed shaken. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Just work stress. You know how demanding my boss can be." But her boss was a woman named Carol, who had always been reasonable in our previous interactions. This sounded like a completely different kind of conversation. That weekend, she suggested we have dinner at Villa Capri, an upscale Italian place we usually reserved for anniversaries and special occasions. "We should spend more quality time together," she said as we ate breadsticks. "I feel like we've been living parallel lives lately." The irony was staggering. Here she was talking about quality time while divorce papers were hidden in her purse, probably in the same folder where I had originally found them. "You're right," I agreed. "We should definitely make more of an effort to connect." She smiled, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "I'm glad you think so. I've been thinking a lot about our future together." Our future together. The woman had professionally prepared divorce documents and was talking about our future together. "What kind of thoughts?" I asked. "Just that maybe we need to evaluate where we are, make sure we're both happy with the direction our marriage is heading." She was testing the waters, trying to gauge my receptiveness to the idea of marital problems, establishing the narrative that would justify her eventual disclosure that she wanted a divorce. "I think evaluation is always healthy," I said. "Important decisions shouldn't be made impulsively." "Exactly. When major life changes need to happen, they should be carefully planned and well thought out." She was practically narrating her own strategy. I had to admire the audacity even as I recognized the manipulation. On Sunday afternoon, while she was getting her nails done, I met with my lawyer to review the counter-proposal we had developed. The document was exhaustive and precise, property values based on current market appraisals, retirement accounts calculated with accurate figures, and a division of assets that reflected actual ownership rather than wishful thinking. But the real power was in the details we had uncovered about her financial behavior. The undisclosed credit card, the mysterious cash withdrawals, the research into asset hiding strategies, all documented and ready to be presented when the time came. "When she finally shows you those divorce papers," my lawyer explained, "act surprised but not devastated. Ask for time to review them with an attorney. She'll expect that. What she won't expect is how prepared we really are." That night my wife was unusually affectionate. She made my favorite dinner, suggested we watch a movie together, even brought up memories from our early years of dating. "Remember when we first moved in together?" she asked, snuggled next to me on the couch. "Everything seemed so full of possibility. I remember you said you wanted to build something meaningful together." "I did. I still do. I just want to make sure we're building the right thing." She was laying the groundwork again, establishing the narrative that our marriage had problems that needed to be addressed, creating the context that would make her request for a divorce seem reasonable and inevitable. But as I watched her performance, I realized something important. She wasn't just planning to leave me. She was planning to rewrite our entire history to justify her decision. In her version of events, I would become the oblivious husband who failed to recognize our marital problems. She would be the thoughtful wife who tried to save our marriage before making the difficult decision to end it. The story she was constructing would paint her as the responsible party and me as someone who had forced her hand through neglect or incompetence. Monday morning brought another revelation. I checked our joint checking account online and discovered she had made another significant withdrawal over the weekend. This time for $800, taken from an ATM across town near her lawyer's office. She was funding her divorce with our joint money, paying legal fees to dissolve our marriage using the resources we had built together. When she left for work that morning, she kissed me on the cheek and said, "I love you. I hope you know that." I almost laughed. She loved me so much that she had secretly retained divorce lawyers and was systematically planning my removal from her life. "I love you too," I replied. "I hope our future is everything you're planning for it to be." She paused at the door, studying my expression for a moment. Then she smiled and said, "I think it will be." As her car disappeared down our street, I realized the game was entering its final phase. She was almost ready to make her move. And when she did, I would be ready with a response that would show her exactly how much I really knew about planning for the future. Tuesday evening arrived with all the subtle tension of a storm gathering on the horizon. My wife came home from work with a different air about her, more confident, more resolute. She had clearly made her decision about the timing. "We need to talk," she announced, setting her purse on the kitchen counter, the same purse that held those divorce papers, now likely updated and finalized. "Sure, about what?" "About us, about our future, about some decisions that need to be made." She gestured toward the living room as if she were directing a business meeting. "Sit down, this is important." I followed her lead, settling into my usual spot on the couch while she remained standing. The power dynamic was deliberate. She wanted to be literally looking down on me during this conversation. "I've been doing a lot of thinking lately," she began, her voice taking on that measured tone she used when she wanted to sound reasonable and mature. "About where we are as a couple, about whether we're both getting what we need from this marriage." I nodded thoughtfully. "Okay, and what conclusions have you come to?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. She probably expected me to ask what was wrong or try to reassure her about our relationship. "Well, I think we both know things haven't been the same between us for a while." "We both know that? Because I'd love to hear your perspective on what's changed specifically." Again, not the response she had rehearsed. She blinked a couple of times, recalibrating. "You're constantly working. We barely spend any time together. When we do talk, it feels superficial. We're like roommates, not a married couple." "Interesting. So the solution you're proposing is what exactly?" "I think we need to seriously evaluate whether this marriage is working for either of us." Evaluate. That's a very businesslike approach to a relationship. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other. Sometimes you have to be practical about these things. Sometimes being an adult in a situation means recognizing when you're not serving anyone's best interests. And you've determined that our marriage isn't serving your best interests. Our best interests, both of ours. How considerate of you to be thinking of my best interests. Tell me more about what you think would be good for me. The sarcasm was just subtle enough that she couldn't call me on it directly, but obvious enough that she knew I wasn't buying her concerned wife act. "I think you'd be happier with someone who could give you what you need. Someone who shares your priorities. And you've already figured out what my priorities are and determined that you don't share them. Is that right? Look at how we live. Look at how we interact. We're going through the motions." "I see. So this evaluation you mentioned, is this something we're doing together? Or have you already completed your analysis?" She sat down across from me, leaning forward with her hands clasped. Her lawyer had probably coached her on body language. "Look engaged, concerned, like you're trying to collaborate." "I've given this a lot of thought. I've considered all the angles. I think the honest answer is that we want different things out of life." "What do I want out of life?" The question clearly frustrated her. "You want someone who's content with the way things are, someone who doesn't challenge you to grow or change. And what do you want?" "I want partnership. I want someone who's present, emotionally available, willing to invest in building something meaningful together." The irony was breathtaking. She wanted partnership while secretly planning to dissolve our partnership. She wanted emotional availability while hiding her true intentions. She wanted to build something meaningful while systematically dismantling what we had already built. "So you're saying I'm not present or emotionally available? Are you? When was the last time we had a real conversation about our hopes for the future?" "Well, we're having one now. You're telling me about your hopes for a future that apparently doesn't include me." "That's not what I'm saying." "What are you saying?" She got up again, walking over to the window. "I'm saying that maybe we both deserve to be with people who actually want to be with us. And you don't want to be with me. I want to be with someone who wants to be with me. Have I given you any indication that I don't want to be with you?" "You don't have to say it. It's obvious in how you act and how you prioritize everything else over our relationship." "Everything else? Like what?" "Work, your friends, your hobbies. Everything comes before us." "When did you start feeling this way?" "It's been building for a long time. Months, maybe longer." Months. The same period she'd been researching divorce lawyers and preparing legal documents. And during these months of feeling disconnected, what efforts did you make to address your concerns? "I tried to talk to you about us, about our problems, about what wasn't working. And my responses were inadequate." "Your responses were defensive. You never really listened to what I was trying to tell you." "What were you trying to tell me?" "That I was unhappy, that we needed to make changes. Changes like ending our marriage, She turned from the window to face me directly. I think we need to seriously consider whether staying together is the right choice for either of us. So, you want a divorce? I want us both to be honest about whether this marriage is meeting our needs. That's not an answer. Do you want a divorce? She sat down again, her expression shifting to something that was probably meant to look pained, but mostly just looked rehearsed. I think a divorce might be the most loving thing we could do for each other. The most loving thing, because nothing says love like the dissolution of a legal partnership. Don't be sarcastic. This is hard for me too. Is it? You seem remarkably composed for someone who's devastated about ending her 15-year marriage. I've had time to process this emotionally. I've gone through the grief of accepting that sometimes love isn't enough. Gone through the grief. She had been planning this for months while I thought we were just going through a rough patch. She had processed the end of our marriage while still sleeping next to me every night, still accepting anniversary gifts, still making plans for vacations together. So you've already gone through all the stages of mourning for our relationship while you were still living in it. I've accepted the reality. Your version of the reality. The truth about what our marriage has become. And what has it become? Two people who care about each other but aren't right for each other anymore. When were we right for each other? In the beginning, before we grew in different directions. What direction have you grown in? I've grown into someone who knows what she wants out of life. Someone who won't settle for less than she deserves. And what do you deserve? I deserve to be with someone who chooses me every day, someone who's excited to build a future together. The prepared speech was impressive. She had clearly rehearsed these talking points, probably with her lawyer or divorced friends. Every sentence was designed to sound reasonable while positioning her as the victim of my incompetence. So, you've made up your mind. I think we both know this is the right choice. We both know. You keep speaking for both of us. But since you've already decided, what exactly are you hoping to get from me in this conversation? I'm hoping you'll be mature about it, that you'll recognize we both deserve better than what we've been settling for. Mature, like secretly consulting divorce lawyers while pretending our marriage is salvageable. Her face went very still. What? Nothing? Just trying to understand your definition of maturity. I think we should talk to lawyers, figure out how to do this fairly and amicably. You want me to talk to a lawyer? I think we both should, to protect our interests and make sure everything is handled correctly. She wanted me to get legal representation, probably because it would look better if she could claim we were both equally prepared for this conversation. It would support her narrative that this was a mutual decision rather than something she had orchestrated alone. That sounds very practical. I'm glad you're being reasonable about this. Reasonable. After months of deception and manipulation, she wanted me to be reasonable about accepting the end of our marriage on her terms. Oh, I'm going to be very reasonable. In fact, I think you'll be surprised at just how reasonable I can be when I put my mind to it. The next morning, I woke up to find my wife already dressed and ready for work. She moved around our bedroom with the kind of energy people have when they've finally made a difficult decision and feel relieved about it. Coffee's ready downstairs, she said, adjusting her earrings in the mirror. I thought maybe we could talk more tonight about logistics and timelines. Logistics, sure. In fact, since you mentioned talking to lawyers, I took your advice. She paused, her hand halfway to her lipstick. You already called someone? Yesterday, right after our talk. I figured if you were ready to move forward, I should be equally prepared. That was fast. Well, you made a compelling case for urgency. And you're right. It's better if we're both properly represented. She turned from the mirror, studying my face. What did they tell you? Interesting things. Turns out there's a lot more involved in divorce proceedings than most people realize. Like what? Financial disclosure requirements, asset documentation, time restrictions on major financial decisions. I sat up in bed, watching her expression carefully. Did you know that hiding assets or making significant financial moves without a spouse's knowledge can complicate the process? I wouldn't know anything about that. No, I didn't think you would. But my lawyer was very thorough in explaining how courts view undisclosed credit accounts and unusual cash withdrawals. Her face went completely blank. Cash withdrawals, Small amounts over time, the kind that might not be noticed unless someone was specifically looking for patterns. She put her lipstick down with deliberate care. Are you accusing me of something? I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm just sharing what I learned about how divorce courts evaluate financial behavior during separation proceedings. I see. My lawyer also mentioned that when one spouse has been planning divorce proceedings without the other's knowledge, it can affect how the courts view requests for temporary support or the division of assets. The color was slowly draining from her face. Planning? Hypothetically speaking, of course. If someone had been consulting with lawyers for months while maintaining the pretense of trying to save their marriage, that might be seen as evidence of bad faith negotiation. She sat down heavily on the edge of our bed. What exactly did you tell your lawyer? The truth. About our conversation last night, about your concerns regarding our marriage, about your suggestion that we both seek legal representation. And what did they say? They said I should document everything carefully. Gather financial records, property information, evidence of any unusual behavior or spending. I smiled. They were very thorough about what constitutes proper preparation. Evidence of unusual behavior. Bank records, credit reports, computer browsing history. The kind of comprehensive documentation that helps lawyers understand the full scope of the marital estate and how it's been managed. She was looking at me now with an expression I'd never seen before. A mixture of confusion and the dawning realization that this conversation was not going according to her script. You seem surprised, I continued. Did you think I wouldn't take your advice about getting proper legal representation seriously? No, it's just, I didn't expect you to move so quickly. You said maturity meant being practical in these situations. I figured being practical meant understanding exactly where we stood legally and financially before making any major decisions. Where do we stand? I got up and walked over to my dresser, pulling out my phone. Would you like to see what proper documentation looks like? Her eyes widened. What do you mean? My lawyer was very impressed with the thoroughness of my preparation. Apparently, most people don't come to initial consultations with such comprehensive financial records. I swiped through the photos on my phone, the ones I had taken of her divorce papers weeks ago, along with screenshots of bank statements and credit card records. This is what she called the complete financial picture. Joint statements, individual account disclosures, credit reports, property valuations. I looked at her. Even drafts of legal documents that might be relevant to our proceedings. Drafts of legal documents? Hypothetical paperwork, the kind someone might prepare if they were considering various legal options. Her breathing had become shallow. What are you talking about? I'm talking about being prepared, about not making assumptions, about understanding that when major life decisions need to happen, they should be carefully planned and well thought out. I was using her exact words from our dinner conversation. Isn't that what you said? Where did you get drafts of legal documents? From someone who apparently believes in very thorough preparation, someone who understands the importance of having all options clearly laid out before making major announcements. She stood up abruptly. You went through my things. I found some papers when I was looking for my phone charger, papers with my name on them, papers that seemed quite relevant to our future planning discussions. That was private. Was it? Because it seemed to me that these documents were specifically about our joint future, about decisions that would affect us both. I put my phone down on the dresser. Decisions that had apparently already been made without any input from me. I was trying to understand our options. Our options? By consulting lawyers and preparing divorce papers without mentioning any of your concerns to me? I needed to know where we stood legally before having difficult conversations. So you spent months researching how to end our marriage while telling me you wanted to work on it. I was trying to figure out the best approach. The best approach to what? To the divorce proceedings or to marriage counseling? Because the documentation suggests you had already chosen your preferred outcome. She walked to the window, her back to me. You don't understand. Help me understand. Explain to me how secretly preparing for the dissolution of our marriage demonstrates your commitment to working on our problems. You needed to be realistic about our situation. Realistic? While opening credit cards I didn't know about and withdrawing cash from our joint accounts to pay lawyers, I wasn't supposed to know you'd consulted. She turned around, and I could see tears forming in her eyes, but they seemed more like tears of frustration than sadness. This wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? You present me with professionally prepared divorce papers, and I just sign them without asking any questions? I was trying to protect us both. Protect us from what? From a messy, contentious divorce? From fighting over money and property? From lawyers who would only make everything worse? So you hired lawyers to make everything better? I hired someone to help me understand our options. And the cash withdrawals, the secret credit cards, the undervalued property valuations? Was that understanding options too? Her tears were flowing now, but her voice was getting sharper. You're twisting everything. I'm not twisting anything. I'm just reading the documentation you prepared. Very thorough documentation, by the way. My lawyer was particularly interested in the timeline of your financial activities. Your lawyer? The one you suggested I consult. Remember, you said we both needed proper representation to protect our interests. I meant after we had agreed to move forward. Move forward with what? With the divorce papers you'd already prepared? With the division of assets you'd already calculated? With the timeline you'd already established? Stop it. Stop what? Stop asking questions about decisions that affect my future? Decisions you made without consulting me? Stop making me sound like a criminal? I'm not making you sound like anything. I'm describing behavior you chose to engage in while telling me you wanted to save our marriage. She sat down on the bed again, putting her head in her hands. This is all wrong. What's wrong? That I found out about your plans before you were ready to reveal them? That I took your advice about getting legal representation seriously? This isn't what I wanted. What did you want? For us to handle this like adults? By adults, you mean you wanted me to agree to whatever you decided without questioning your methods or your timeline. She looked up at me, and for the first time since I'd known her, she looked completely defeated. I wanted to end this marriage with dignity. Whose dignity? Because secretly planning someone's removal from their own life doesn't strike me as particularly dignified. I never meant for it to happen like this. How did you want it to happen? We recognize we both want different things and agree to separate amicably after you've already prepared all the paperwork and established all the terms. I was trying to make it easier. Easier for whom? She didn't answer, but she didn't need to. We both knew the answer. The following days brought a swift fallout from my wife's carefully laid plans. What she had intended to be a controlled dissolution turned into a complete exposure of her deceptive behavior. My lawyer moved quickly. Within 48 hours, we had filed a response that detailed every financial irregularity, every undisclosed account, every cash withdrawal that had been funding her secret divorce prep. The court was particularly interested in her attempts to undervalue marital assets while simultaneously hiding expenditures. My wife's attorney called an emergency meeting. Apparently, they weren't expecting such thorough documentation of their client's activities. Your wife's legal counsel wants to renegotiate, my lawyer informed me. They're claiming the original petition contained errors, that they need correction. What kind of errors? The kind that happens when someone assumes their spouse won't investigate their claims. Suddenly, your house is worth $50,000 more than they initially stated. Your retirement account has mysteriously gained 20% in value. It's amazing how accurate appraisals become when someone's paying attention. My wife came home that night looking exhausted. Her confident demeanor had been replaced by something close to panic. We need to talk, she said. About what? Your lawyer? The response they filed? The accusations you're making? Accusations? I thought I was just documenting facts. You're making me look like a criminal. I'm presenting evidence of financial behavior that occurred during our marriage. Whether that makes you look like anything is entirely dependent on what that behavior actually was. She sank into a chair. This wasn't supposed to be adversarial. You secretly prepared divorce papers, retained lawyers without my knowledge, and withdrew thousands of dollars from our joint accounts to fund legal proceedings I wasn't supposed to know about. What exactly were you expecting this to be? I thought we could handle this maturely. Maturely? Like adults who communicate honestly about major life decisions. Her phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it, and her face went even paler. Who is it? I asked. My lawyer. She wants to meet tomorrow morning. Good. Maybe you can explain to her why your financial documentation was so inaccurate. It wasn't inaccurate. It was preliminary. For 9 months, she stood up abruptly. I need to think. About what? How to fix this? Fix what? The fact that your strategy didn't work, or the fact that I found out about it? About how to salvage some dignity from this situation. What an interesting time. Suddenly, dignity matters when your plans fall apart. I never wanted to hurt you. You just wanted to end our marriage on terms that heavily favored you while pretending it was a mutual decision. That's not true. Which part? The terms favoring you or the pretending it was mutual? She didn't answer. Instead, she went upstairs to our bedroom and closed the door. The next morning, I got a call from my lawyer. Your wife's attorney wants to withdraw their original petition and start over with accurate financial disclosures. After 9 months of preparation, they want to start over? Apparently, when someone realizes their opponent has comprehensive documentation of their client's activities, they prefer to renegotiate rather than explain their initial claims to a judge. What does that mean for me? It means your wife's attempt to control the narrative and the terms of your divorce has completely failed. She's now in the position of having to justify months of secretive behavior while you have evidence of every questionable decision she made. And practically, she went from holding all the cards to holding none. Her credibility is compromised. Her financial claims have been exposed as deliberately misleading, and she's facing potential consequences for dissipating marital assets. That evening, my wife returned home with red-rimmed eyes and a manila envelope. I'm going to withdraw the divorce petition, she announced. Why? Because this isn't what I wanted. Because I never wanted things to get this messy. You mean you never wanted to get caught? I mean, I made mistakes in how I handled this situation. Mistakes like secretly planning to end our marriage, or mistakes like underestimating my intelligence? Both. She put the envelope on the kitchen counter. I want to try counseling. I want to see if we can work through our problems. After spending 9 months preparing legal documents to dissolve our marriage, people make errors in judgment. People can change their minds when they realize they've been approaching things the wrong way, or when their strategy fails and they need a new approach. This isn't strategy. This is me recognizing I handled everything wrong. I looked at the envelope containing her withdrawn petition. What exactly are you proposing? We go to counseling. We try to rebuild trust. We see if we can save our marriage? The marriage you spent months secretly planning to end? The marriage I was afraid to fight for. And now? Now I realize some things are worth fighting for. What changed your mind? She looked at me directly for the first time in days. Finding out I married someone smarter than I gave him credit for. I looked at my wife, standing in our kitchen, holding the withdrawn divorce petition like it was some kind of peace offering. After everything she'd done, after months of deception and manipulation, she thought counseling would fix what she had broken. No, I said simply. No to counseling. No to trying to rebuild trust. No to pretending what you did was just an error in judgment. Her face fell. But I withdrew the petition. I admitted I was wrong. You withdrew it because your strategy failed, because you got caught, because your lawyer told you your credibility was shot and you were facing potential financial consequences. That's not why. Then why? Because I realized I still love you. You loved me 9 months ago when you started planning this. You loved me when you opened secret credit cards. You loved me when you withdrew thousands of dollars to pay lawyers. You, love, didn't stop you from doing any of it. I was confused. I was scared about our future. So you decided to control it, to manipulate it, to remove me from it without giving me any say in the decision. I made mistakes. You made choices, deliberate, calculated choices over a period of months. This wasn't a mistake. It was a comprehensive plan that only became a mistake when it failed. She put down the envelope and moved toward me. Please, we can fix this. No, we can't. Because the person I married wouldn't have done what you did. The person I married would have talked to me about her concerns, would have suggested counseling before consulting divorce lawyers, would have respected me enough to include me in decisions about our shared future. I am that person. I just got lost. You didn't get lost. You chose a different path, and that choice revealed who you really are underneath the person I thought I knew. I'm still the same woman you married. The woman I married wouldn't have lied to my face for 9 months while secretly planning to destroy our life together. She started to cry again, but this time it felt different. Not tears of frustration or manipulation, but genuine grief for what she had lost. So that's it? You won't even try? I did try. I tried for 15 years to build a marriage with someone I believed was honest. I tried to create a partnership with someone I believed respected me. I tried to love someone who I believed loved me back. I do love you. You love the security I provided. You love the lifestyle we built. You love having someone to fall back on when your plans don't work out. But you don't love me enough to include me in major decisions about my own life. That's not true. It's completely true. And your offer to go to counseling now proves it. You're still trying to control the outcome. You're still trying to manage the situation. You're still believing that if you say the right words or make the right gestures, you can get what you want. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. What do you want me to do? I want you to accept that some things can't be fixed, some trust can't be rebuilt, some relationships don't survive the discovery of who people really are. So you do want a divorce? I want honesty. I want dignity. I want to end this marriage knowing I maintained my self-respect throughout the process. And me? You'll be fine. You're resourceful. You plan ahead. You know how to take care of yourself. I walked over to the counter and picked up the envelope containing her withdrawn petition. But we're going to do this right. No more games, no more manipulation, no more trying to control narratives or outcomes. What does that mean? It means we'll file new papers, accurate papers with honest financial disclosures and a fair division of assets. It means you stop trying to manage this process and start accepting responsibility for the choices that made it necessary. And if I don't agree? Then we go to court and let a judge decide how to deal with someone who spent months hiding assets and lying to her spouse about her intentions. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her calculating. Even now, even after everything had fallen apart, she was still trying to figure out how to minimize her losses. You win, she finally said. This isn't about winning. This is about ending something that should have ended 9 months ago, when you decided you didn't want to be married anymore. I never said I didn't want to be married. You didn't have to say it. You showed it with every choice you made, every secret you kept, every lie you told. You showed me exactly how much our marriage meant to you. She picked up her purse from the counter, the same purse where I had first discovered her plans. Where are you going? To pack some things, to find a place to stay until this is finalized. Probably wise. She paused in the kitchen doorway. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. I know you are. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry your plan didn't work. You're sorry you have to face the consequences of your choices. I'm sorry I hurt you. No, you're not. If you were sorry you hurt me, you wouldn't have spent 9 months doing it. After she left, I sat in our kitchen, surrounded by 15 years of a shared life, and felt something I didn't expect. Relief. Not happiness, not satisfaction, but pure relief. The weight of pretending everything was normal while knowing it wasn't. The burden of loving someone who was actively planning to leave me. The exhaustion of upholding a marriage that had been over for months without my knowledge. All of it was finally over. My phone buzzed with a text from my lawyer. Ready to file the accurate paperwork when you are. I typed back, let's get started. Some stories don't have happy endings, but they can have honest ones. And after months of deception, honesty felt like enough of a victory.